The following readings are from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Each week we read from both scriptures as prescribed by Yogananda ji and his guru Sri Yukteswar ji, who was guided by Baba ji to compare the two scriptures to show the same underlying truths between them. This week's title is Intuition is simple, the intellect is complex. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 10, we read a passage that Yogananda often quoted. And they brought young children to him that he should touch them, and his disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God. Verily I say unto you, whosoever shall not receive the kingdom of God as a little child, he shall not enter therein. It has often been noted that a critical attitude tends to paralyze creativity. Good critics, for example, seldom produce works of creative genius, though their creations may be intellectually clever. The intellect separates, it analyzes, then puts things together again piece by piece. Intellect lacks intuition's flow, which descends smoothly like a river from the superconscious. Paramahansa Yogananda described intuition as the soul's power of knowing God. To receive the kingdom of God, Jesus was saying, one must do so with the openness and trust of a little child. Intellectuals may object to this statement, saying, but there must also be discrimination. You wouldn't want a person to be so open-minded that his brains fall out. The truth is, however, that the intellect can be fooled, even when it does its best to discriminate wisely. Only intuition is capable of penetrating to the heart of a matter and knowing truth from falsehood. It was the clear understanding of a child, not the elaborately persuaded intellects of his elders, that enabled the child in Hans Christian Andersen's story to cry out in surprise, "Why isn't the emperor wearing any clothes?" Therefore it was that Sri Krishna said in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, to you who are free from the carping spirit, I shall now reveal wisdom sublime. Grasping it with your mind and perceiving it by intuitive realization, you shall escape the evils of delusion. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda. I don't really want to, the flowers are so pretty, I don't want to block them. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I tried to use intuition to pick this reading by opening to whatever reading it opened to. And then when I read it, I thought, but I figure if I don't read this one, we may never read it. So, and it's an important one. I don't mean never, you'll see why. Whether dead or living, I am held in thine immortal arms. Okay, that's the punchline, so remember that. Mother divine, the brave may laugh as they pass among flying bullets, though death threatens them with each one. I laugh, however, because whether I am floating on the surface of this present life or sinking beneath the waves of death, I rest forever in thy protecting, omnipresent, eternal life, held safely forever in thy immortal arms. I knew that would get a smile from Prasanna, and looks like a few of you made it through. It's true. It's not as if we're dodging bullets regularly. I hope your walk down the road was, safe and unbulleted. But this Master used the image of bullets all the time for the spiritual path. He said many of the disciples are wounded with bullets of desires. And if you can think of it like, gosh, what an image. But of course it's true. It's because desires create that agitation. They create that emotion. As we read about joy, it's not about a desire being fulfilled that brings us joy. But it's also a nice image too, because it helps us think of, as opposed to, this is all my desire, my fault, my irresponsibility, which is a terrible way to think on the spiritual path. People think that sometimes, myself included, because we feel that, well, we have been instructed on what the right attitudes are, and yet at present my attitude is not right. And so therefore I must somehow have a problem. And you can sort of understand that if it were purely an intellectual thing, and we do this in school, we learn sort of some method for, say, mathematics, how to add numbers up and so on. And then we make a mistake. 7 plus 3 is, 11. We do something like that and, oh, how stupid of me. Oh, I knew what I was doing. Oh, it was a careless error. I was haunted through my early years of school by careless errors. Even the word, careless. You are without care. You were lacking in paying attention. And if you think about it, at least for me, most of my careless errors, mathematically, intellectually, came from disturbed feeling, actually. I was upset, or I was nervous. I mean, I was 7, so I don't have a whole catalog of that, but I had some stressful things going on. We all do in different ways. And that was what was disturbing my intellect, to the point that as I got older, I realized whenever I looked at the mistakes I had made intellectually, this is related to the topic, that if only I had been calm, either I might not have made the mistake, or what I learned is, especially among the sort of mathematical people I worked with, it wasn't that they never made mistakes, but they had different ways of solving the problem to check it, to therefore see if it had a mistake or not. Because if you just check what you did, your mind tends to say, yeah, I already did that. That's why when we're proofreading something that we've written, it's hard to, because we already wrote it. Yes, of course I wrote it. Then the person writes back and, says, what did you mean when you said not in the wrong place? And so, things like that. The mind already kind of goes along that groove. But it's about calmness. And so the thing then is that how the feeling disturbs the intellect. If the feeling is calm, the intellect follows. So the most important thing to remember among, because many times this topic of intellectuality versus feeling comes up as, either people go by intellect or they go by feeling. And what's frustrating about that for some people is that we have a sort of inclination one way or another. Everybody will have an inclination more towards intellect, more towards feeling, probably. But on the spiritual path, we come to balance ourselves. I mean, we talk about yoga as balance, and people sort of, do you mean like, balance like that? And yes, even that physical balance is very helpful because of the effect it has on our mental state. And also, doing yoga postures, for example, like that, we use the body in a way that we're probably not used to using it. I mean, most people aren't sort of walking to work like this and so on. But instead, walking to work kind of, or walking to work going, I wish I were walking somewhere else. And doing the physical postures gets the mind's attention, because you have to pay attention. But then also the affirmation helps so much, because you could kind of, I'm doing it, and so the mind can be engaged with the affirmation. I am calm. I am poised. And poised is such a wonderful word, because it's another way of saying I'm centered. And I am ready for whatever is needed. But I'm acting from my center. And that then feeds the mind. It helps the mind. I came to the spiritual path from a very intellectual sort of bent. I had feeling too, but I didn't really know what to call it, and I didn't, it was there, but I was really interested in the intellect. And so when I was reading Autobiography of a Yogi, there was so much in there. It was so helpful. There was a lot to feed my intellect with. And I also thought some of the things he said I recognized as, well, I think this is a philosophy of life that I was developing too. So very satisfying that it was in harmony with that. On the other hand, there were so many things he said in there that I thought I never would have come up with that. I mean, how are you going to invent Hong Saw on your own intellectually? Do you start with the beginning of the alphabet? Ong Ba. No, that didn't work. Okay, Kong Da. Well, I know we're going to get there. Only 26 times 26 combinations until it takes a long time. And you might not even notice it when you hit upon it if you're not feeling. Because how do you know it's right? Because it feels right. You see? And the funny part is anybody who is against feeling is guided by feeling anyway. I don't like feeling. Well, that's a feeling. The wish to sort of eliminate feeling is a feeling. So it's pointless. The punchline is that, of course, we should use both. We should balance both. And we might want to work on the one that is not our preference, not our default, to balance ourselves in that way. It's often the case that intellectual people, if they find a compatibility with a person who's more feeling, enjoy that because they instinctively feel an attraction to that feeling nature. They are drawn to that, and they say, oh, this helps me. It gives me something that I don't have, or it gives me something that I don't have uppermost. Everybody has everything. Remember that. There's a wonderful line Swamiji wrote in the Nayaswami vow, in myself I will merge all opposites of duality. And we have to remember that in ourselves we can be complete. And anything that we're seeking to get from other people is really so that we will feel it in ourselves. In other words, suppose you have a great joy in a friend and then the friend is taken away. Maybe they move to another city or whatever. Remember that capacity, that joy, you had the capacity to feel. And you haven't lost that capacity. We tend to link the joy to the person. You make me feel this way, or this situation, this job makes me feel this way, and without it, I can't feel that way. But that joy is within you. And if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have felt good around them. And you know that sometimes because you'll enjoy something wonderful, you'll listen to a piece of music and say, oh, it's so wonderful, and you play it for someone and, lunch yapo, just doesn't strike them. And vice versa. Sometimes people will sort of show, isn't this beautiful? And you just don't feel it. But in that case, if we are the ones on that side of the line, it's good to encourage someone in their enthusiasm. You could say, for example, well, I don't like it, but I like that you like it. But like I said, say that to yourself. It's terrible, but if you find, joy in such trash, then I'm happy for you. No, just be, dignified, be cheerful, be generous, be glad that someone's happy without feeling obligated that we have to share the same taste. We don't, because we don't. We don't have to because we don't. There will be different things that attract us. So, this intellectuality, with my intellectual bent, I was reading Autobiography of a Yogi, and I was very satisfied intellectually, and there were lots of wonderful concepts and lots of words that were big words, and I knew what they were, so I was very happy. But, it was more than that, because I had tried to look at other intellectual books on yoga, and I couldn't get anywhere with them. So I knew there was something special about this book. I don't want to misrepresent it. But still, then Sri Yukteswar was a saint of wisdom, Gyan Avatar, excellent, very good. Because I had this thought, as sometimes common among intellectual people, that sort of, if I had a perfect intellect, then I would somehow be, what? Successful? Okay. Clear-minded? Sure. whatever else, like, better able to guide my life and the lives of others. So then what? So that then I could feel happy. So I could feel happy, you see? I was disagreeing with somebody at a picnic once among sort of researchers, and he was saying a friend of ours wants this job because he wants to be dean of students, and he was sort of applying to be the dean of students in some college. And I said he only wants that because he thinks it'll make him happy. And he said, "What? What? Happy? Of course not. He wants to mold young minds to carry out the tenets of engineering into the world." It's not as if we were, healing the sick and raising the dead. And I said, "Well, but why?" "Well, because then you can feel that you have an impact beyond your own work, but your impact is felt through so many." And I said, "But why? Why is that useful?" And he went on and on, and until finally he said, "Because it'll make him happy." Because it's true. It's why anybody does anything. And so this also, it's such a fallacy to even look at it intellectually, that if I have a perfect intellect, then I will be like the greats. I will be like Einstein. I will be like whoever. But almost for the great ones, all of their discoveries came through intuition. Einstein, the speed of light is constant, right? Sure. I mean, why? Because he said so, and other people say he's right. I mean, what does it really mean? How do we really know? I mean, did we do the experiment with the telescope and saw light bending around the sun? Or no. People keep saying it. We say, okay, good. You right? Okay. E equals mc squared. Sure. Why? Because Einstein said. Of course, it is true. We hope everyone seems to agree. The ones who do know. But Einstein didn't come up with E equals mc squared in an intellectual way. You see, again, he didn't cycle through the alphabet, putting letters together, seeing what worked. E equals mc squared, huh? Nala. No. What he said was that he realized that if he were traveling at the speed of light, that light itself as a wave would appear as a standing wave. And standing waves you can sometimes see in sort of when rivers come together or certain things with the tide. The waves basically, because they're moving in a perfect sort of rhythm, they appear as if they're standing. And so you see a wave moving across the thing like this. Sort of if you take a cloth and you go like that and you see the wave moving from one to the other. All the waves are standing at the same time going like that. It's interesting. What does it mean? I don't even know. But that's what he said. That light would appear as a standing wave, and from that he realized the speed of light had to be constant. But it came like that. Yes, he was trying to figure it out, but it came in a flash. He didn't say speed of light variable, speed of light constant. Let's flip a coin. Constant. Okay. You see, all the great breakthroughs, even in science, especially in science, come through intuition, flashes of insight. And doctors will tell you, too, that they have all the training, but still, I'm thinking of a doctor in this room who told me how she had a flash of intuition before a procedure, better get something ready that is never needed and often expires because it's never needed, insulin. And then she got it ready, and it had been expired, and then she needed it in an emergency, right, for that next procedure, and the patient was fine, happy ending. But where does that come from? Well, we'll get to that. But first, the intellect. So reading Autobiography of a Yogi, then I come to Sri Yukteswar, and I'm so pleased, and then he says, basically, of the intellectual person, which is to say overly intellectual. It's not that you don't use your intellect, but you have it in proper proportion. Or to put it another way, you have a strong intellect and a strong heart. So he says, for the intellectual person, the ego is flattered that it can grasp such complexity. And I thought, that's exactly it. It's really all that it comes down to. There's something complicated. There's some advanced thing in combinatorics involving an application to Lie groups, and I'm so thrilled because I know those words, though I'm still not fully sure what they mean. And it's just, I have grasped something. But you start to become very practical. Like, what is it going to take for me to improve my own life? This is one of the things that drove me to the spiritual path, that I saw many of the people who were progressing in my field, who were at the top of the field, many of them were not happy, though. They were successful, they were revered, and rightly so. They had accomplished a lot, but they weren't necessarily happy. Some were, but some weren't, and that really depended on the person. There was one man who was just kind of cheerful no matter what, and extremely brilliant. His initials were FTL. I don't want to say his name, even though it's all complimentary. The name he had, FTL, were his initials, and people said it meant faster than light, because he was so quick, he was so brilliant. But he just seemed to be happy no matter what. And other people, no matter how much they had achieved, still wasn't enough. And so I thought, something is missing, and I do want to be happy. I know that, because I had known enough of unhappy. I was an expert in unhappy, and enough so to say that to be successful without happiness isn't worth it. And I wanted both. What I found in time was that all of this, what I was doing, made me more happy. It also helped me when I said to others, there was these startup companies happening at the time, and someone was saying, I'm going to join a new startup in California. And I said, did you think that's wise? Because he was leaving the PhD program. Don't you want to complete your PhD? And he said, no, I basically want to go. I think it's exciting what they're doing out there and all the new stuff they're making. I said, but we have devoted our lives to the pursuit of great insights at any personal cost. We have renounced wealth, riches, LinkedIn status. LinkedIn didn't exist yet, and he looked at me just like, what do you have, and is it contagious? I didn't renounce any of that. And he said, I'm going. And I said, well, good luck to you, and you're sort of straying off the path. And anyway, what's the company called? He said, it's called Google. I said, never heard of it. So anyway, good for him. It worked out well for him. I checked it with him years later. He was their first employee, actually. So the two founders, they hired him first. So anyway, he's having a good run of it. Again, hopefully he's happy, because that's the point. And so the intuition, though, is guiding us always. Even people completely non-intuitive are still guided by intuition. It manifests first through, this feeling manifests through attraction. We sort of like something, and we don't like something else, and we can't really explain. Even it comes down to tastes. Think of that. Just certain foods you like the taste of, certain foods you don't. I had a student in when I was a school teacher. She loved to eat raw capsicum, and she would do it like an apple. She would take it and just one of these superhuman, accomplishments that she had. And, some people hate pavakai. Some people love pavakai, or at least like it. I saw some pavakai the other day at a buffet, and I took some for old time's sake. Just, good. But it's not really good, but I trained myself to like it. But there are some things I cannot train myself to like. Dharmini gave me one of my least favorite foods, saying, look, you can't even taste it. And I had it, and I said, you can't even taste it. You're right. And I swallowed it, and my stomach kind of went, I can, and just Vaindam. And she said, what I really needed to do was have it given to me without knowing what it was. Apparently, there's a story that Master didn't like beets as a young man, and then after a week with Sri Yukteswar, one particular week, Sri Yukteswar said, "How do you like beets? You've had them in every meal." But they had been carefully disguised in different ways. I don't know how you describe beets. It's like, it's red. There's beets. But anyway, Sri Yukteswar could do it. And so he carefully disguised it. And Master said, I don't really know the end of the story. I'm not sure if it's fully true, but it goes around as a story that happened. And the principle of it, of course, is true. And so we have preferences that we can't explain. We can call them likes and dislikes. And on one level, there are such things. We can't say, Mother, with my intuition, I reject the ladyfinger. It's a deep vision from God that I have felt. No, I mean, likes and dislikes are just that. They're just from past lives, probably. I think I must have grown up in a beet factory in my last life and spent my whole life among beets, because I don't even like to look at them. So, but anyway, this feeling of, why I like a particular person, why I, I'm feeling a little cautious around a particular person, more and more, as long as it's not based on just superficial things or prejudice. We always have to test our feelings to see if they're true, because they could just be likes and dislikes. They might not be deep, they might not be true. We want to know the truth, whether we arrive at it through the intellect, through the intuition. It has to be the intuition, because it's only the intuition that recognizes that it's true. You see, so many people will say, oh, I have learned that truth here. I have learned so much about life here, meaning at this center or on this path or on any path that they're on. But as Swamiji pointed out, truth can't be taught. It can only be, a person can only recognize it. Because there's something in you that says that's true. There's something in you that vibrates, that feels, that says yes. For example, even in choosing a spiritual path to focus on, someone may feel very at home here and not feel at home elsewhere. Someone else will feel very at home elsewhere and come here and say, it's nice, but it just doesn't fit me. And so when especially you're visiting different places in that phase of the spiritual journey, you can sometimes see, gosh, they really love this stuff. Good for them. But again, it somehow isn't mine. How do you know? You just know. How? Because you feel. It really comes down to that. Someone took discipleship just last week, and she said, I grew up with Autobiography of a Yogi. I always had it. My father was at least a follower of Master. He didn't take Kriya, but he did all these things. And my brother has taken Kriya, and I was taking classes and then suddenly got interrupted and had to wait years before coming back and taking discipleship. And she said, and I'm so glad, because now I'm sure. She said, it wasn't just that it was all around me and I was following that. I did feel an attraction, but I've had enough time now to really test that feeling, to test other places and say, no, this feels like mine. And that's what Swamiji said of Master when he met him, which we celebrated on Tuesday, that what I felt most of all from Master was that he was mine. You see, not mine, not Swamiji's only. He wasn't saying that at all, of course, but that it was just, this was his. He belonged to Master, Master belonged to him. And we come to that over time, and it gets deeper and deeper. We need enough of that to take the first step. You could say that's more the belief, not yet tested fully, because you can't test it. For example, you can't test your discipleship before discipleship, only after discipleship. And so that feeling of, okay, I believe enough of this to try. That's in fact how I took discipleship. I was not very confident. I have, someone here in Chennai said, I'm not sure whether I need to take discipleship or not. I'm kind of back and forth. This morning, because it was Sunday morning, because he was so late and we were so late in having the conversation. This morning, as I woke up, I looked up and over my bed, Yoganandaji was standing and he was smiling. I don't know, I guess I'll take discipleship. It's kind of, good. But, I woke up many mornings. No one. And so I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't sure. My problem was self-doubt, because I had this intellectual doubt that how do I know this isn't all just made up in my head? Not the path is made up, the path is true, but my connection with it. My own experience. I mean, I haven't, seen the spiritual eye. I haven't levitated at least a few inches off the ground. I mean, you want something. So how do I know this is real? It's a little bit of a variation on as if Babaji came out and said, it's real. But, he didn't. I have to say, I was sharing some of the things that I had gone through with Dhyanaji saying, I just have these doubts. And then she asked about meditation, and I talked about a few things, and she said, you have that, and yet you doubt. And I just thought, Because I also was studying all on my own. I was doing home study, or online, we would call it now. There it was offline, and just being alone with the book. So I didn't have others to talk to. I had people I could email, Ananda. But I didn't, even have just casual conversations. Sometimes we learn a lot about ourselves through others. Well, Swamiji gave the example of how that he went into one of his brother monk's rooms, and the monk was lying down on the bed, not breathing. For some reason, Swamiji wasn't immediately alarmed by that. And then he visited, he was, I think, maybe going to ask another one, do you know what's going on? He was doing the same thing. And later, they came to, and they were back in the body, and they said Master had been giving them a tour of the astral world. And Swamiji said, and I couldn't even hear the stupid chakras. He did hear the chakras later, but at that time, here they are having all these experiences, and I'm just, trying to hear for sounds and can't hear anything. But he said, but Master would, when they were in mixed group, Master would always praise Swamiji and say, be more like him. He said to one disciple of Swamiji, you mix more with Walter, you don't know what you have in him. And Swamiji said, I didn't know what I had in me either. But he also noted that later those two left the path that had this astral tour. And and another man left the path who was having these great experiences right beforehand. And Swamiji wondered, was Master giving them that in an effort to keep them, to hold them on, to say, look, this really is real? So we don't know. So again, you never want to compare yourself. You just don't know. And remember the story of the disciple of Lahiri Mahashaya who came for initiation, and he said, no initiation. First you have to take level 1, then level 2. No, I'm kidding. He didn't say any of it. He just said, no, you stick around here, but no initiation yet. And so he was just hanging around the ashram doing chores. Cleaning, cooking, helping, that's it. And meanwhile, people would come for initiation, and Lahiri Mahashaya would give it. And so this went on for some years, I think. And finally, he said to the disciple, okay, now you're ready for initiation. So he taught him Kriya, probably at an initiation. What we do is based on his initiation from Master. And he practiced Kriya the first time and went into Samadhi. So, that works. But you see, we just don't know. So it's like, okay, should we all practice Kriya now and see if this is the one? You should have that attitude. Master said, have that attitude that the next meditation, the next Kriya is going to put me into Samadhi. We want to have an openness to it. We don't want to pretend and say, actually, I'm already in Samadhi. Someone asked Rajesh in a class, what does Samadhi feel like? And of course, the answer to that is, gosh, I'd love to know. But Rajesh gave a good answer. And then she said, but still, it's something, you have to read what the masters say about it. And she said, it's actually kind of a cool feeling. Okay, very good, congratulations. So the thing we have we do have to be open. We don't have to say, I know it's never going to come, it's never going to come. Some people sort of delight out of humility to say, oh, I'm nowhere near that. You certainly don't want to say, I'm very near it, I am it, because that's distorted too. How do people know, though? Master put it beautifully. He said, if you follow these things, if you follow the path, if you grow, it's a wonderful line in one of his talks. He says, whoever shall see your eyes shall change, or whoever will see your eyes will change. He didn't say whoever you see and sort of beam change to, that they will change. So don't do that, okay? Don't just, think that I am going to, Nobody likes that, okay? If you're wondering, nobody likes that. I had to learn, for example, giving all kinds of advice to people, which I'm sure would be helpful and was certainly well-intentioned, and I saw they weren't doing the right thing, and so it must be because they don't know. And since I'm here, who better to tell them? My friend count went way up and way down. And so you learn. That's the other thing a yogi is, a scientist is, an intellectual person is realistic, practical. The thing about science that the intellectuals tout is it's grounded in reality. And it is. But there's more to reality than just, length, time, and weight. I mean, those are the only things you measure in physics, for example. And it's amazing what you can get out of that. But still, there's more than that. It reminds me of an economics teacher in college. In this first day of class, he said, everyone says that economics is a soft science, and it is not a real science like physics. And he took out a $100 bill, and he put it on the table. And he said, so I'm putting this here, and if I walk out, physics says tomorrow it will still be there. But economics. So what we realize, even all of this, again, why is it so great that science is grounded in reality? Because then it makes us feel good. It's satisfying. You see? We even had this thing when I was studying theoretical computer science with other people, and every now and then we would talk about certain things, and my friend I would look at it kind of like, and he said, don't say so what, because everything that we do can just be so what? It's not practical. It doesn't necessarily have any relation to anything. It's just taking some thought and adding another thought on top of that and then writing it down. So never go near that, because then the game is over. And I have to confess that it was true at the end of all of my work. Though I liked it so much, I started to say, so what? It's not leading me to union with God, and that's what I want. And I'm having so much more fun doing this. Though I had fun doing that, it was never a rejection of any of it. And still, just the other day, I called someone, how are you? How's it going? How's your Kriya? How's your work? He says, I'm working on this algorithm for, maintaining network connectivity in a changing environment. I said, please don't say more, because that's something that I worked on too, and it's very fascinating. And anyway, then we did end up talking all about it, because it was something I did enjoy. And it's good to be strong as you can. You're not supposed to become dumber. Or I haven't talked to the other side of this, which is to balance the feeling with intellect. But you have to pick a side, and that's the talk. So this is the subject today. So try most of all to just ask yourself, is this working for me? If I'm not comfortable, why am I not comfortable? Am I doing something that's really making me happy? And, I have to, and I have no choice, and all these things. Well, you don't know. What you can always say to Divine Mother is, I'm happy to do this as long as you want me to, but I'm also happy to move on. Haridasji put it very well. He said, in whatever job assignment he's been giving, my heart is always open and my bags are always packed. Just in case it's time to go. Beautiful. Be where you are in the moment, but be detached also, in case Divine Mother then wants to change things. Sometimes we are the ones holding on for too long to something that really isn't working anymore. And but make sure if you do leave a situation, you feel that you don't have to. Meaning, I could do that for another month, another year, and still be at peace. Sometimes you have to make a dramatic break, but most of the time it's better to graduate. In other words, leaving successfully. Otherwise, it's just time for those same lessons again in the new job or the new situation. So, you can't give universal advice on this that applies to everything, but keep this in mind, that you want to feel free, not just escaping and then pursued by the karma. So, again, just to be practical, to say, what is it that is making me happy? Devi was showing the movie Finding Happiness when it first came out to her family members. And at the end of the movie, I think it was her cousin, said, because Swamiji's last advice when asked, what's your last advice of the interview, he said, live to be happy, don't live to be unhappy. Or maybe he said it the other way, don't live to be unhappy, live to be happy. And her cousin said, I'm not happy. I'm not living to be happy. I'm doing everything that everyone told me to do. And he was, 50 or 60. And he said, and I'm just not happy at all. And I hope that set him on a journey of introspection, of saying, well, then what could you do? Because there are always options. Remember, God wants you to be happy also, Swamiji said. Not just, at the end of all these tears, you will be purer. It's not that. It's not just all purification by fire and all that. Yes, now you are cleaned, and dead. But no, he wants you to be happy. So when you hear that voice that says, it's good to suffer and you have no choice, that's not God's voice. Somebody else's voice. So have that feeling that what can I do to be happy? Sometimes being happy just means being at peace in the moment. In fact, it always means that. Adjusting our attitude. Happiness is not a desire fulfilled, as Swamiji wrote. He describes desires, and Master did, as pinching of the flesh. In other words, we're fine, and then this happened to me just yesterday. I was thinking, okay, in the temple, they're about to cover the stage with wood, which effectively seals off the stage. Like you can imagine this having wood having a surface and then carpet over it, and whatever's underneath you can't access anymore. And of course, in this case, it's bricks, so there's no problem. But there, it is a frame, as you all know. And then underneath, I thought, did they plug the holes? Because on the terrace, there used to be holes where the water would drain out. And the civil people, as part of what they were going to do, was supposed to plug those holes. You could say, what does it really matter? But if it's open to the air and air comes, you don't know. But holes should be plugged if they're not going to be used. And suddenly, I had this closed. But it's an unpinch. It's the relief. Then when you stop pinching yourself, I created this whole scenario nightmare in my mind about some stupid holes. And then it was solved, and then I could be happy again. But so often when we have things like that in life, Dharmini and I will say to each other, unpinch, thank God it all worked out. But it worked out anyway, and there was no reason to be nervous about it in the first place, or to wait to be happy until we get the answer. No, be happy now. So it's unpinch. So look for how many things in life are just an unpinch. And then smile about it with God. The point is not to laugh at ourselves, but to laugh with God, to enjoy it as God's play. Divine Mother likes to have fun with us that way. As Master said, when he was getting his first headquarters and the money came after the deadline, but the owner said, who was selling it to him, we will wait the rest of the day, and the person came in at the last minute, and Master said, I think Divine Mother likes to keep my life interesting. And she likes to keep all of our lives interesting. As Haridas Ji says, sometimes Divine Mother gets lonely because we're not thinking of her. So she grabs our finances because she knows it will get our attention. And so remember, God is having fun with you, wanting to have you enjoy things with him, and then share that joy with others. The one other thing I wanted to say, this was about giving advice and all this sort of beaming spirituality at somebody else like a microwave or something, that be practical and see, did that work? Did that have the outcome that you expected? Which is to say, were there smiles of gratitude or were there fangs coming out? And so just be practical. Swamiji said, Master had a way of saying anything to anyone in such a way as that the person would remain open to him. In other words, on one level, you would say he was careful. If there was somebody who was very proud, Swamiji did this, we saw it all the time. If someone was very proud and intellectual, and Swamiji was writing something, and he wanted to involve the person. And so he said, I'm writing a book. I'd like to send you the chapters. I'd be interested in your suggestions and thoughts. You see, it appealed to the person's ego. Of course. Of course you would. Yes. But it got them to read it. And then the really smart ones realized, Master told Swamiji, I'd like you to read the lessons and give suggestions for their improvement. Swamiji said I'd been with him, 6 months or whatever. I mean, how was I going to give suggestions for improvement? And I knew what he was saying was he wanted me to study the teachings deeply. So he knew inside. He felt that. And so you always have to look for what's also behind what the gurus are saying. But we can do that ourselves, to just be careful that how can I put this in a way that will help the other person hear it, or how can I not put it in any way because they're not ready to hear it right now. So that the person's openness, think not only of this conversation, but the next conversation. Especially if you want there to be a next conversation, we have to just be a little careful with this one, just to think. It's an art. It's something that I remember. I said to Vineet once when he was coming for classes. He said, "I want to come to Chennai and take level 4, and some people are objecting to that, so I'm not sure what to tell them." I said, "Well, what are you thinking of telling them? Why you want to go to Chennai today?" He said, "Because I want to merge with God." I said, "Okay." Is there, and good for you, and I applaud it, and I do too, but is there any other reason you might be able to give them that they may have an easier time relating to? And he said, well, there is a class on accounting that is being offered that I wasn't planning to go to, and in fact is actually free because of some situation with the professor. So I could go and I could take it. It wouldn't hurt. And then while there, I could do this too. I said, what a great idea. And he did go. I said, you can't say you're going to do that and not do it. You have to do it. But sometimes you share with people things that they can handle. And on the other hand, you share with your devotee friends things that are more meaningful to you. Be respectful of other people's comfortability, comfort, and comfortability with different topics. Some people just aren't comfortable. I had that experience with a friend who was very spiritual, but it was just not a spirituality I could relate to. I finally had to say, we can talk about nothing spiritual, which broke my heart on one level, because that's the rule for every conversation practically with people. But in this case, I said it's just it's not harmonious. So I said, we'll have more harmony if we just leave this off the table. And he said, okay. And then we started laughing again, and we had a good time because we found what we had in common. And I didn't need him to stop being crazy, and he didn't need me to be more crazy. And so we found our common ground. So anyway, remember, no matter what you do, it's always ultimately guided by the heart. And let's really work on feeling more in the heart. God bless.